So here we are on the island of Isabela in the Galapagos Islands, currently at Puerto Villamil, which is a small port village located on kind of like the southern eastern edge of the island. And of the probably about 2,000 people, a little more than 2,000 people that live on Isabela, the majority live here. And you go down the path to the dock, it's pretty much only one dock going in and out. And you see the sea lions just hanging out. There's some crabs on the lava rocks. The sea lions just kind of hang out wherever. You have to respect their territory because it's their land, and they just do kind of whatever they want. So here they are hanging out, and they're pretty much a mood. They're kind of like sea dogs, um, just kind of hanging out and sleeping and laying in the sun all day. And they're pretty cute, as you can see. You have to stay, one of the rules in the Galapagos is you have to stay at least 2 meters away from the sea lions, or los lobos as they call them, los lobos marinas. You have to stay 2 meters away from the nature here in the Galapagos because you have to respect it. It's pretty important that you respect the nature because, like I said, it's their land. And they do, they like to play. They're like little dogs playing in the water and then sleeping all day. So after that, we got on the boat. It was a tour, and there was about 10 of us. You could see me, and as soon as we got on the boat, probably like a half hour later, we saw this huge manta ray. It was probably, I don't know, over 10 feet, and it was just hanging out right beside the boat by itself, and it was just huge, swimming around the boat. Now, this tour was a half a day tour to Los Tuneles, which are the lava tunnels in the Galapagos Islands that are really popular for snorkeling because of the shallow water, and you have some of the sea life and the marine life that like to hide in the lava tunnels. It is about an hour away from Puerto Villamil. Now, at one point, it got very close to the side of the boat, and I was sitting in the very back on the side. So it got very close to me, and I got to see it up close. And at one point, it splashed me. It hit its fins against the water and splashed me. And then a few seconds later, it actually smacked the side of the boat, and the boat kind of tipped a little bit. So it was a very interesting experience. Here in the slow-mo version, you can see just how massive it really is and just how it glides through the water.
Dale, Breno. Ábrete.
Now, once we got to Los Tuneles, you can see the gorgeous lava rocks. And as soon as we docked, we got into the water. And the first thing we saw a few minutes later were gorgeous sea turtles. There's me in the background in my snorkel gear. And there was about, like I said, about 10 of us on this tour snorkeling, so you could see everybody in the background. Everybody wanted to take pictures of this gorgeous sea turtle. After looking at these sea turtles, we swam a little bit further and we saw these beautiful white tipped sharks. Now, the white-tip reef shark is the most common shark species within the Galapagos Islands, and they can typically be found in the reefs and these shallow waters and in these caves. And that's where we saw these. And these white-tipped reef sharks in the Galapagos Islands are locally known as las tintereras. These rainbow fish are some of my favorite fish that I've seen in the Galapagos. Now, most of the sharks that we saw were actually underneath some of the lava tunnels or some of the lava caves. So our guide was able to push us underneath. We had to hold our breath and push us underneath some of the caves so that we could see the sharks and some of the kind of hidden marine life underneath. The Galapagos Islands are formed from seismic and volcanic activity, so these lava rocks you can see are pretty much everywhere, and that makes them also one of the best places to snorkel because the marine life likes to hide and likes to swim and likes to kind of nest within the lava rocks. You can also see that the lava rocks don't really have a path, so you have to swim underneath them sometimes to get where you're going. This proved a little bit difficult because it was a tour. There were about 10 of us snorkeling, so you had to wait for some of the other people that were with your tour to go underneath the rocks and take their pictures as you passed through. We swam a little bit further, and you can see the water was so murky. The visibility was pretty low. And this just happens naturally just because of the sediment that's there and just because of the current. But it also happens because you have so many people swimming there. And as you move your fins or as you move your arms, you kick up some of the sediment, which causes the water to become a little less clear and a little more murky. At this point, the current was also pretty strong, so it was very hard to swim and very hard to see where you're going. So it was kind of like you had to look at the person's fins in front of you to get where you were going. You can also see all of us are wearing wetsuits because the water is pretty cold. So we continue to swim on. You can see the visibility is pretty low. And then all of a sudden you see this shark swim by. And it was at a pretty good distance. So I was feeling like, all right, this is okay, but it just kind of came out of nowhere, and since the water is so murky, it kind of scares you a little bit. You can see everybody else is kind of taking pictures because this is the first time we've seen sharks in other places underneath some of the caves, but this is the first time that our group had seen sharks in open water. And then they kind of disappear. You don't know where they go. So it's a little bit scary. It's a little bit unnerving. And and then it just kind of swims by, just casually. It's their territory, their ocean. You can see here, I kind of got a little bit scared, and just because there are so many people, the water was very shallow, or yes, the water was very shallow here, and the rocks are very close. So yeah, that was the point where I said, "Oh shit, that's a really close shark." But the water, like I said, the water was so shallow and there were so many people all bunched together. It was very hard to swim because we were just so close together. And then with the sharks, it was just very crowded. So it was kind of like everybody was flailing and everybody was just trying to not only take pictures and see what they wanted to see, but then get around everybody and then not to disturb some of the sea life that was on the bottom of the rocks and some of the algae that was on the bottom of the rocks, because you don't want to disturb or kick up some of the sediment. That's one of the things that you learn in the Galapagos. You have to be very careful of, there's me, you have to be very careful of not disturbing the natural life that's there. And you just keep swimming along. Another person in our group. Just keep swimming along. Oh, look, another shark, just casually. And you can see on the top of the fin, this is a different type of shark. This is the black tip shark, which is another common species of reef shark within the Galapagos Islands. So different from the white tip sharks, this is the second type of shark species that we've seen on this tour. Now, on this tour, not only did we see the sharks, we saw a lot of beautiful fish. We saw those rainbow fish, we saw puffer fish, we saw rainbow fish, like I said, the parrotfish, we saw lionfish, we saw clownfish. There are just so many gorgeous fish and colorful fish that we saw. I didn't get a lot of pictures of some of the fish just because they were hiding and it was kind of hard with the group to take pictures, but there were some gorgeous fish here in the Galapagos Islands. You can also see that this fish is kind of hidden, like I said, in some of the caves. And that's where we saw a lot of the fish and a lot of the sharks. Like here, you can see my hair, my braids. The guide called them kind of like an octopus because it was sitting on top of my head. But again, he pushed us down underneath some of the caves and we could see all of the sharks. You can see tons of sharks just hiding out, taking a little rest underneath the caves. And again, those are the white-tipped sharks. again, you see more of these black tip sharks. They were kind of more of the free ocean sharks as compared to the white tip sharks. They were kind of hidden, but all of a sudden we saw these black tip sharks again, and then we saw a bunch of eagle rays go by. Now, I think that there's like 15 to 20 different types of rays in the Galapagos Islands. We saw that giant manta ray, which is one of the largest types of rays in the world, but they're the largest type of rays in the Galapagos Islands. Then you have eagle rays, and here are a couple of the spotted eagle rays. They have other types of eagle rays as well. There's I believe it's the marble ray that I've seen also in the Galapagos Islands, and then stingrays as well. And in one of the other videos that I will be posting, when I was snorkeling around Isabela and the Porto Villamil, by the dock, there's a little snorkeling area, and we saw a school of eagle rays and stingrays as well. So super cool. I hope you enjoy this kind of slow motion video of the spotted eagle rays just gliding through the water. They look very majestic and just so gorgeous. And they're also a little bit later in the video, in probably about a minute or so, take a close look at their faces. They are also super cute, and they look kind of dopey as well. Those sort of trees that you saw growing out of the water are mangroves, and they grow kind of near the ocean, or in the ocean type area, and they come up from the ground. And this is also where a lot of marine life hide, sort of like a reef. They hide in between some of the roots of the mangroves. Now, this was near the end of the tour. After we saw these rays and we saw these sharks, we swam back to the boat. We got on the boat and had lunch, and then we walked over some of the lava tunnels, or los tuneles. There are many cactuses or cacti. And then we got back on our boat. There's our boat for the about hour journey back to the port.